Hockey Talk Show on a Monday. Look how bright it is in the studio. Daylight saving right there. We're going to talk about a bunch of things on the show today and move through it quite quickly, so I hope you can keep up with us. I'm sure you can. Most of you are more intelligent than me anyways. We're going to talk about the worst NHL collapse for the 17-18 season, the Islander Implosion, the Calgary Collapse, or the Edmonton Embarrassment. I'm a radio guy. I love alliteration. Plus, late season injuries. Could they hamper playoff teams? And co-GMs, why that whole entire concept just completely sucks, and I hate it, on this episode of the Hockey Talk Show. Talk Show. Coming to you live on a Monday. It is 5:26 in the East. We're doing it early today. Got lots of things happening. Lots of things happening in the hockey world. Glad that you can join us wherever you're watching from. Appreciate the audience as always. Facebook and YouTube, let me know that you're here and in the room. Hit the thumbs up. Let me know what you want to talk about. We're going to move through the show quickly. Tommy, what's up, man? Tommy, you messaged me. I'm going to get back to you. I promise, brother. I love the Anaheim versus Edmonton game. I did not see that. That was a late game. Was that a late game last night, I'm assuming? I missed that one. Getting up early for radio in New York stinks. You tend to miss a lot of stuff. But we'll tell me what you loved about it. Like Anaheim. I don't know. Anaheim seems like a little bit of a dark horse for me, don't they? Like, can Anaheim just blow everybody out of the water and really turn some heads? I just don't know. Not as great as they probably could have been, but they've managed to stay out of the implosion and collapse category. Adam, Edmonton Embarrassment is the worst. I may have to agree with you, my man. Let's take a look around the NHL headlines for the day today. Steven Stamkos is day to day. He's going to miss the Coyote game tonight from Arizona. Coach John Cooper said the injury is not long-term, though. I do tend to worry when it comes to number 91. He has been known to get hurt at times. He has gone out for long periods of time. It doesn't seem to really upset the Tampa Bay Lightning. They've managed to do well without him. But nevertheless, I still a little concerned about Steven Stamkos when it comes to the injury department. I know Tampa is really, really good, but as good as they've been, I still worry about them not having their full force behind them going into these playoffs. This is a big one for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think everybody's expecting them to have a slam dunk Stanley Cup championship here, or at least a slam dunk coming out of the East Stanley Cup final appearance. But, I mean, nobody can argue with the fact that both Boston and as hot as they've been, Toronto's been great. The Caps are always difficult, and Pittsburgh looking at three-peat. It's not going to be as easy as maybe we thought it was going to be first 20, 30, 40 games into the season. So I worry about the Tampa Bay Lightning. I'd like them to have Stamkos in there. But you know, they're going to do fine with or without him, and they have in the past. But again, if you're going to make these long runs, I want you to be healthy, especially by all arguments, your best player on the roster. Which, by the way, Stamkos doesn't get a lot of credit for that anymore. You know, he does get a lot of guff, and there's so many other players that are playing so well. Everybody wants to throw the spotlight on Hedman and Point and, you know, Yanni Gord and Vasilevsky, and everybody wants to give Stevie Y the credit for this team going on a run, and sure, he deserves it. It's all very, very true. It is all very true. But man, we've, you know, it's like it's like how nobody picks Tony Soprano as their favorite character in The Sopranos, you know, or Michael Scott in The Office. I'm just rolling through my favorite shows here. You know, they don't get enough credit for the work that they do, and they do a lot of work. Always trust the captain. Speaking of which, this guy's going to be out for a little while, 2 to 4 weeks. Nick Foligno out for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Speaking of captains and important players, only 15 goals and 18 assists on the year. Definitely not their most offensively gifted player, but no doubt about it, Foligno wears the C for a reason, and him going out with a 2 to 4 week injury here, not good. Not good for the Columbus Blue Jackets. You got to be slightly concerned if you're a fan of the Cannon guys over there in Ohio, because they're going to need this cat healthy and rolling into the playoffs. And I don't know if they're going to have him come playoff time. 2 to 4 weeks is definitely well past the end of the hockey season. So we'll keep our eye on Nick Foligno. And again, this is the weird time where you start to get into these injuries. I talked about this with John Tavares. It's interesting on his perspective because here's a guy who doesn't have a contract, has zero guarantees for next season, and he's out there playing every single game in the orange, white, and blue for the Islanders, and one wrong puck to the head or one Brad Marchand special, and suddenly you're going to complicate your big long-term 8-year deal that you're trying to work out. So these late-season injuries are the absolute worst. Nobody enjoys these, even when they happen to Sidney Crosby, and you're a Philadelphia Flyers fan. Even still, you don't really take much solace in that fact. Killer numbers in the Facebook room. Want to thank the Red Light Hockey guys, and I want to also say hello to the NHL YouTubers group that we got going on, where the show is coming in live today. Tom is down in sunny South Florida. We got a lot to look forward to in Florida, right? Panthers are turning it around. They're making their run. They're challenging. Tampa's well in it. Sunshine State's got a lot of hockey to be proud of. Does Florida get in? They got 2 games in hand. They're 3 points behind the Devils. Philly has evened out a little bit with Tampa, Boston, and Toronto solidifying themselves in the top spot on the Atlantic Metro Division. Seems, well, Columbus and Philly are tied. Let's see how Foligno does with them. But Pittsburgh's got 92 points. Washington, 95. They're not going to catch up to those guys. They could, I guess, in theory, but I doubt it. Pittsburgh's playing some good hockey right now. Real good hockey. 6-2-2 in their last 10. Columbus is just white hot at 9-1-0. Philly's evened out. Jerseys have settled in. And I don't know. Can the Panthers catch up to the Devils? It is so possible. I think Philly's in. I think the Devils are the question mark. And can the Panthers catch up to them? I don't know. Tom, are you a Panthers fan? Quick show note here. This is going to be the last live show for a week. I am heading down to sunny Florida with the family and going to unplug for a little bit. Off chance there, if something massive happens, there could be a live on location show from sunny Florida. But going down to visit some family and do the family thing. So if you're wondering, there will not be live shows for a week straight. We're going to take a week off, and then we're going to get back into it hard for the playoffs, which should be a lot of fun. Everybody here loves the Bolts, and no one can remember there's another team in Miami. Tom, I'd say you're crazy, but the attendance records in the Florida Panthers home back your statements up. So worried about Foligno with the Columbus Blue Jackets and where that's going. Who's the biggest collapse? Who's the biggest disappointment so far for the 2017-2018 season? I listed 3 in the description of the show: the Islanders, the Calgary Flames, and the Edmonton Oilers. To that list, I didn't want to go crazy on the description list, but to that list, you have to add, you know, I could see an argument for adding Ottawa, even though I thought they stunk, and I thought they got, not that they got lucky, but I thought they got the bounces, and everything was going their way last year when they made their deep run. I wasn't shocked to see their implosion. I was a little surprised after they got Duchesne to see them not kind of spark things a bit. But again, as we've seen in the National Hockey League, goaltending can be so fickle. And they just did not get the goaltending this year, and that's why they're collapsed. So I wasn't entirely surprised at Ottawa. One that's not on our list here that I definitely will consider in the conversation is the Chicago Blackhawks. It's just depressing. It's kind of like seeing your grandpa get old, you know, when he can't kind of get off the chair fast enough anymore. A little sad to see. I still think they're an incredibly talented team, but they have fallen so far this year. And again, goaltending. Corey Crawford was out for a whole bunch. There's a common theme here with these teams that did not make it. Their goaltending stinks. Across the board, just terrible goaltending. But when we're talking about collapses, ranking this thing and just looking at it from an analytical standpoint, I have to say the Edmonton Oilers collapse. I got to agree with Adam. Edmonton Oilers collapse by far is the worst because a lot of people, myself included, had this team pegged to go to the Stanley Cup final. And the fact that they are at the bottom and have been for quite some time, and by the way, are going on a run and getting hot at the wrong time. They're just playing themselves out of a lottery position. To me, is the biggest disappointment because they had the highest expectations. Calgary, I had high expectations for. They miss. The Islanders had such high expectations. Now, I felt that they were, the Jordan Eberle acquisition was kind of under the radar and people weren't giving them enough credit. But I might be wrong. Todd on Facebook, Louis on YouTube, simultaneously, you guys throwing Dallas into the mix. I wish we had Dustin here. We're in Red Light Hockey again. I don't know if he's around today. Maybe he'll catch it on the replay. But Dallas, certainly a disappointment. 1-7-2 in their last 10. That's the other thing we got to talk about. The difference between the Edmonton Oilers and the Ottawa Senators just laying an egg out of the gate versus the Dallas Stars and the New York Islanders and the Calgary Flames all laying goose eggs down towards the end of the season. I mean, what's more difficult? What's more difficult? I just don't know. It's so hard to come by, like living with the disappointment all season or having the hope that maybe like, when is my team going to get it and turn it around? Like Boston did and like Florida is doing and like Philly did, and then being let down towards the end of the season. Away from society, you really need to change up your intro. It's corny as F. Thanks, Away from Society. Positivity on the internet lives. So, yeah, I mean, it's really just... I don't know, whatever's worse. I mean, it's painful for your team no matter what, no matter where you're coming from. But, I think it's toughest for the Edmonton Oilers fans because you have McDavid and you have your sights set on everything. It's Cam Talbot's second year. You're expecting more out of him and a bigger year out of him. You got all these guys, you got Maroon and all these guys coming into the mix and you're thinking this has got to be it. Calgary was a big deal, getting Hamonic and getting Mike Smith. The press conferences, I remember going through it and everybody saying, here's their final two pieces. They shored up their back end. As it turns out, they only have one forward line, In Edmonton, we learned that Connor McDavid, no matter how good you are, cannot carry a whole entire team for the whole entire year. Dallas sat by, did very little, right? Did next to nothing in the offseason. Not in the offseason, in the down the stretch for the trade deadline. And they come up woefully short. Islanders standing pat, and they do nothing at the trade deadline. And you would think going back to the Dallas Stars, but you would think the addition of Radulov would have been, bam, you're in, you're solidified. Here comes another big-time 30-goal scorer into the mix. And the Dallas Stars fall flat. And so I wonder, in this bizarre year where no coach has been fired, how have we had no coach fired? Because somebody's got to go. Bishop getting hurt put a nail in the coffin and took away all hope. Dallas had high expectations, I thought, at least to me. Louis on YouTube. I'm surprised Mike Smith doesn't smash a stick every night. Coyotes look so awesome trading Smith with how their goalie situation is looking near the end of the season. If I'm the Arizona Coyotes, I got to sign Ranta, and I got to sign him quick because I think that Ranta can go for big. And if I'm anti-Ranta, I am not re-signing. I am trying to hold out. I think he's an RFA, if I'm not mistaken, though. I'm trying to get the hell out of Arizona because I know I can get big money on the market because Ronta's had great numbers on an abysmal team, and anybody looking for a goaltender upgrade, which every team we're talking about is looking for, is going to be desperate and overpay for a goalie. Todd bringing up a good point. LA losing momentum, sitting outside of a playoff spot right now. St. Louis, after trading Paul Stastny away and essentially collapsing, has gone on a 7-2-1 run and found themselves in the final wild card position for the West. But they are tied with Los Angeles, with St. Louis having one game in hand. It's crazy to think that there's only 6 or 7 games left in the NHL season. The season's kind of gone by pretty damn quick. And who's the bigger surprise? Colorado, Vegas, Boston, Philadelphia? We've gotten so spoiled with Vegas that we don't really see them as a surprise anymore. But think back to the beginning of the season. This is pretty damn shocking. They're 47-21-7. I mean, that's insanity. The Colorado Avalanche, after being in the basement and trading away their best player, suddenly awoke all the other guys who were supposed to be their best player, Nathan McKinnon, and they've risen to a 41-26 season. I mean, they're not that far off from Anaheim, San Jose, and they're only 11 points back of Vegas. Now, 11 points is big, but I mean, still, that is such a shock. Adam, Edmonton, this whole city was ready for that run. I feel you, man. New arena. McDavid's finally there. You get into the playoffs. You have a good showing. I mean, it was a good effort. Edmonton is hurting, man. Edmonton is hurting in a big way. I'm not sure there's another market hurting like Edmonton. I think Calgary's starting to get there. Obviously, Arizona's been hurting for a while. Obviously, the Islanders are hurting. Florida, these are all Florida's short-term struggles, but Edmonton, after just pick after pick after pick not working out, I get it, man. That city was ready. That city was ready. Lou says Vegas, but he's biased, but I get it. Vegas is a big surprise. To me, I am most shocked about Colorado. Boston, I kind of understand. I get it. It was a quicker turnaround than I thought there would be. But when you look at that roster, they still have Tuukka. They still have Chara, who's had a great year. They still have Bergeron, who's maybe the best player, most unsung hero in the game. They still have Marchand. McAvoy was a stud, and we all saw it. He got to his potential a little faster. And by the way, he's still going to get better. So that was a bit of a surprise. The Flyers turning their thing around was a bit of a surprise. I think everybody was so focused on the Metropolitan Division and the Rangers and the Islanders and the Devils being the early season surprise that nobody was paying attention or had any sort of expectation for the Flyers. And that little coverage managed to turn their thing around. But who goes? I mean, I have a hard time believing that out of the 3 or 4 teams that we mentioned being the big disappointment, right? Dallas, I get it, but, you know, they got close. It was a late season collapse, but they got close. But when I look at the big 4 in the disappointing Ring of Honor here, Islanders, Edmonton, Chicago, and Calgary. Can it be that we go through this year and finish the season and not one of those coaches gets fired? Is that possible? Todd agrees. Colorado was the surprise to him. Is that possible? That's my question to you. And we're going to kind of leave it with that. Is it entirely possible that all of these coaches go the entire year and don't lose their job? I mean, if you want to throw Dallas into it, we can, but I don't think Hitchcock goes anywhere. I think Hitchcock writes his own ticket. I think that, again, in New York, Alain Vigneault, he's safe. Even though we're not talking about the Rangers, there's a rebuild. I get it. I wasn't surprised with them. He stays. I think Todd McClellan gets another year. I do. But Glenn Gulletson, Doug Waite, Joel Quenneville. I said Joel Quenneville might not be back with the Blackhawks. It'll be his decision. If Joel Quenneville wants to go, and by the way, like Todd McClellan and I think Ken Hitchcock is safe, but Todd McClellan, and we can name a couple of other, Vancouver, Ottawa, like we can name a couple of other spots. If Joe Quenneville wakes up tomorrow and he goes, I'd like to coach Connor McDavid, Todd McClellan will be out of a job. But if that doesn't happen, and if Joel stays, I think the two leading candidates to get fired here is Glenn Gulletson and Doug Waite. Mostly because I think Doug Waite really deserves it because he's been terrible and hasn't been able to solve the Islanders' problems. And I think that Glenn Gulletson really let this season slip through his hands, and the throwing of the stick and the yelling at the players. Look, it's a coin toss, this stuff. John Tortorella calls out his team in the media. They turn it around and lights a fire under their rear ends, and it works. This guy does it in practice, seems to work for a little while, and then it goes wrong. The problem is when it goes wrong, and again, it's a coin toss. Now what you have is two big outbursts from the year and a failing season. That kind of stuff gets you fired. So even though I think Doug Waite deserves it more, I think it's going to be Glenn Gulletson that winds up going at the end of this season. Somebody has to. I refuse to be a part of the hockey community if no coach gets fired and we've had all these disappointing years. I will leave hockey. Not really. I'll be just fine. A final word before we go. And you know what? Before I get into that, just to tack this on, out of the disappointments, the Islanders, Calgary, Edmonton, out of those, who's got the biggest turnaround next year? I got to say Edmonton, right? With McDavid. Final word here. And this co-GM thing. If you guys are unaware, congratulations, because it drives me nuts. But the World Championships are coming up, and Team Canada just named Sean Burke and Marty Brodeur co-general managers, and I think that sucks, and I hate it. Berkey was the GM of the Olympic team, and Brodeur was the assistant. I get wanting to promote somebody, but co-GMs, what's next? Co-presidents, co-CEOs. Organizations are run one way. I get by committee, but there's got to be a stopgap. There's got to be a number one and a number two. What are they going to do if they don't agree on something? Co-GM each other to death? Doesn't make any sense. There's got to be one guy that makes the decision at the end of the day. You have a GM and an assistant GM. None of this co-manager bull. How'd that work out for the Dallas Stars? Not so great. We're off for a week, family vacation. I hope you guys enjoy. Keep commenting on the page, facebook.com/The Hockey Talk Show. Until I see you guys again, keep spreading the word. Keep sharing on Facebook and YouTube. Appreciate the support as always. We're coming back hardcore after our little break here. A lot of playoff talk, a lot of free agency talk. John Tavares, where's that winding up? We're going to be going through all of this stuff coming up real soon right here on The Hockey Talk Show. Enjoy the